this AP computer science class, I've got to say, is like one of my favorite classes to teach because of the flexibility that you have. And because of the flexibility, I love hands-on projects, because what
Yeah.
I've noticed with my students, and I don't know if y'all are ready for me to jump in or not, but with my students, if I can keep them engaged, up out of their chairs, moving and grooving and doing cool stuff, then they can honestly see more relevance than they could, as opposed to my very first year when I had these cute, neat little textbooks all with numbers, and they opened them up and they had to look at them and read them and have vocabulary tests every Friday. That didn't work for my kids. That just didn't do it. And I mean, I sought out many different ideas, for anywhere from CodeSpace, which for me was, I couldn't afford in my budget. It was super, super expensive.
Yeah.
Code.org, where there's free resources. But if you've ever taught out of code.org much, you know that those hands-on projects do get a little pricey too if you start adding up all the resources. So
Yeah.
I really need something that I'm not going to have to buy a subscription to every year, because there are other things that my kids need. I mean, let alone ink in the printer and paper to go in the printer.
Exactly.
And that comes at a price tag of around $1,000 just for ink for my printer. It does a whole year, but that's $1,000. So sometimes class fees, you got to save up a little. So Fear Labs and CodeSpace and Microbits, that just really did it for me. And so that's when Amber and I were talking. She's like, you really need to do this webinar and address AP computer science principles and how you've been able to like marry those two together. I said, oh
Absolutely.
my gosh, I would love to. She says, she's like, well, we'll pay you. I said, well, it's not even about the pay. I just get excited about being able to share something that actually works and works really well for the student.
Absolutely.
So if y'all don't mind, I'm gonna go ahead and kind of jump right in with my Southern accent and all. But just housekeeping. I know no one really needs this, and Amber had already set this up on the slides that she sent to me. But she wanted me to remind everybody to keep themselves muted unless you're wanting to ask a question. And you can just hold your space bar down to temporarily unmute yourself if you want to ask a question. And that keeps you from having to find the mute button, unmute, remute, all that. So that's just a quick little tip. You can use the chat options to ask any questions. If there are any immediate needs, you can raise your hand. So if you guys will stop me if somebody raises their hand, and because when I get into it, I'm IT. I go really fast sometimes, and I don't mean to. But I'm just so excited about the things that I have to share that I don't want to leave anything out. And then, of course, this will be posted where for later viewing? Somewhere?
It will be on Fear Labs YouTube channel later.
Oh, okay, great. All right. And I don't know who those daily office hours apply to, but it's not me. So I just left it because I really didn't know why it was there. But today's objectives, I thought some people would be joining the line that weren't as familiar with computer science principles, but maybe their school, for whatever reason, was like, hey, we're going to be offering this, and guess what? You're going to be teaching it. Because that's kind of how it came about in my world. Like, hey, there's this course. I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, I would love to teach a new course. Like, in all seriousness, I like jumping into new tech courses because, there's just something neat that even myself, I like to learn or brush up on my skills. But this is one of those classes that I feel like is relevant to every single student in high school. We all need to learn a little bit about everything pertaining to technology as it evolves rapidly. So we're going to review the Create PT. The Create PT is a portion of the AP score that is a project that's done in class. And we're going to talk about CodeSpace and Microbits and how you can incorporate that into this class, and maybe not just with the Create PT, but also within that Create PT option. And if anybody has any questions, of course, we'll be happy to take those throughout the conversation. If it's anything burning that you really need to know and you're scared you'll forget, but if you want to save it till the end, we're going to have time for that. So the definition to the course is that it is an introductory college level computing course where students are going to be cultivating their understanding of computer science, working with data, collaborating to solve problems, developing computer programs as they explore concepts like creativity, abstraction, data and information, algorithms, programming, the internet, and the global impact of computing. Now, one thing to note about this course, it is not language specific, meaning you don't have to use Python, but you can use Python. You don't have to use Java or HTML5 or any specific language because that's not the point of the class. The point of the class is to teach them how to think critically. And once we teach them using blocks, then we can investigate and explore additional languages. Now, I like to focus on Python and microbit. That's what we use with the CodeSpace curriculum. So just kind of know that jumping in. But I left you guys a link down at the bottom where it says source. So anything that I put up here, I have documented and backed up with links that are outsourced to AP College Board for future reference. So what is this class and what is this Create PT? You know, I've had a lot of teachers ask, well, wait a minute. This is an AP class. So you just take a test at the end of the class, right? In May? Well, it's not necessarily just that. In years past, in the last 3 years I've taught this course, the actual AP exam itself is 74 multiple choice questions, and the students are given 2 hours to complete the assessment, but it only accounts for approximately 60% of their overall AP score, meaning that there's still 40% of the score sitting out there in the form of projects called performance tasks. Now, if you've been keeping up, College Board is changing AP Computer Science Principles and how the AP score will be calculated starting next year. I can tell you that they are doing away with the Explore performance task, and they are keeping the Create performance task. 2 different projects here. The Create was weighted more. I believe it was 24%, and the Explore was 16%. But what they're going to do is with those 2 projects, they're doing away with the Explore and putting all of those objectives in the form of questions that will then come at the end of the year on the AP test, or at least that is my understanding at this time. So please don't come after me if that is not 100% correct. I encourage you to check with College Board and follow their guidance on how they are going to be scoring for AP Computer Science Principles. But what I can tell you is they are going to be keeping the Create performance task. Now, this performance task focuses on students developing computer programs and describing significant aspects of the program that allows it to run. Students have the flexibility to write programs that reflect their interests. For example, their desire to solve a problem, maybe programming a game or producing digital art that is appealing to a specific audience, or the imagination is really the limit here. Anything they can think of to create, that's the point of the project. This allows students to engage in the study of computer science from a creative perspective. Students will provide evidence of their knowledge of important programming concepts, such as developing algorithms and using abstractions. Students are required to submit an individual program, but are able to collaborate with their peers on the development of their program. And you can see that is the source is cited down below this slide. So in order to get to the Create, we need to back up for just a minute and make sure that, number one, the students that are coming to us in this course have the foundational skills and knowledge, the basic understandings that they need to do all of that stuff. Well, this is where CodeSpace and microbits, and if you have CodeBots, this is where those items are critical in my opinion. But backing up a little more, you need to make sure that you've also completed some unplugged activities. It means just that. It's unplugged. You're not hooked to a computer having kids staring at a screen writing code. This is where we're teaching foundation skills that the students need to know and be able to understand as they move forward with CodeSpace. So what I use, and of course, the great thing about this class is you have flexibility. If you want to teach a hands-on project about a given topic but not on another, then that's all you. What I do is I let my students make binary bracelets. This is where you can teach binary conversion and allow students to code the first letter of their first name. And I use red and black beads, since those are our school colors, to represent ones and zeros. Another project that I use that's great for when you have a sub and you want them quiet, or maybe you're working on a new project for them, or you're setting something up for the next day. A great one to look at is Pioneers of Computer Science. This is where they're researching someone famous in CS. So this is a great way to teach some history on computer science. And then lastly, the other big one I use is PB&J algorithm. This one was voted my absolute favorite activity by all of my IT students. It's super messy, but it's really fun. It does involve peanut butter and jelly, bread, plastic utensils. So just kind of know that in advance. Depending on how many students you have, it could cost you just a little bit, but just be aware of that. But you'll find all of this in the Jumpstart manual. I've sent a hyperlink to the unplugged activities that you can click on just to make it easier for you. So at the end of this, I know that the guys at Furia Labs have a link to this presentation. So if they'll share that, then you will have all the links that you need to take you to the manual so that you can review the lesson plans. There are more opportunities here to pick from unplugged activities like the coding relay race, debugging relay race, hide and seek, and the Lego maze algorithms. Just a sidebar at the very bottom, if your students come into your class for computer science with absolutely zero background, it's going to be really important that you probably offer up every one of these unplugged activities that Furia Labs has developed and incorporated into their curriculum. It's going to be in Unit 0 for your future reference. So now finally getting to microbits and CodeSpace. So to get started, you're going to want to, the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to take a look at that Jumpstart manual. And you're going to want to have your microbit with you, and you're going to need a couple of days to practice with your microbit going through each of the lessons, obviously, before you have your students go through the lessons. So how do we get started? What do we do? Let me see. And you guys tell me if it doesn't take you with me to the manual. I want to show you the Jumpstart Teacher's Manual. And this is very important information if you're a teacher and you're going to be offering computer science principles in the future, or maybe even a middle school level course. Then it's really important to know all the ins and outs when it comes to this manual. It goes over all of the information you're going to need to know. You'll see prerequisites are on page 5. What I've done is at the top of page 6, I've just copied and pasted into this presentation. Okay, how are we going to get started? You're going to open a Chrome web browser, obviously, and then you're going to go to the make.furialabs.com link and log in with your Google account. It's going to then bring in CodeSpace, as you can see. And my computer froze up on me for just a second. So we're going to take a look at the first unit of the Jumpstart manual on page 18. And I want you to see the lesson plan too. So we're scrolling down through. And if you, in your classroom, if you have Google Classroom, then you will notice that all of these lessons that you can assign to your students, they're also, Fury Labs has done a great job, in my opinion. And sorry, guys, my computer's freezing up on me. Fury Labs has done a great job of already creating these Google assignments so that all you have to do literally is post it or schedule it to post at the specified time. Okay, well, maybe I need to come back to that. Okay. So with teaching the lessons, I'm going to go back here and we'll try to take a look at the Make Fury Labs website. But okay, so I'm having a
Tiffany,
little bit of technology.
Try stopping sharing your screen.
Do it.
Try stopping the screen share.
Okay.
And then open up Make Fury Labs in a tab.
Okay.
And then kind of share from there. See if that works a little bit better. Sometimes Zoom can be a little wonky. And while you're doing that, just for the other participants, in the chat, I posted College Board's latest update on the 2021 framework. They do not have the full CED up online yet, to my knowledge, but that should be coming. And everything Tiffany said in the beginning is all stuff that I have heard before, because I am also an AP reader and a table leader for the principal's exam. So those changes are coming. In the Explore task, my understanding is that's going to be more embedded into those 74 question exams. So where it was a independent research project before, I think it's going to be more of a, here's a couple of sources, and then still answering the responses in a similar platform or via multiple choice questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, sure.
Appreciate it. Okay, so this is where I'm getting to. Can you guys see my screen? Joanne, can y'all see
You are good. I can see it. Yep.
Oh, great. Okay, good. Yeah, because I was having some issues there. Okay, but what I love about this is, you know, when you're teaching a class, how frustrating it can be when little Johnny or little Susie get way, way, way behind and you feel like you are reteaching constantly. The way that this online curriculum works in my classroom, I will introduce at the beginning of the day, okay, guys, this is what we're doing. But then I get to have some independent one-on-one time with my students as I walk around the room so that I can give assistance. But for those superstars in IT, they can really read through this and apply their knowledge and run with it. They don't necessarily need somebody lecturing to them for them to get the understanding behind it. And they love gaining points. If you see up here where my mouse is hovering over XP, those are points. So if they do something right, they get more points. They can kind of think of it as a game in that regard. But it's just, you know, you can navigate through all the lessons. I like that you don't have to go in the order that you're given, but you can. I do. Just because this last year was the first time I had ever incorporated microbits and CodeSpace into my curriculum. And I will say too, if you're teaching AP computer science principles, then this is just a buffer. This is something to help your students with understanding Python programming language. specifically for CodeSpace. This is not meant to be the end-all be-all, but it is a resource that I will have every year moving forward because my students loved it. I start out with the unplugged activities. I do incorporate other resources. So this isn't the only one. I want to be very candid and very open. This isn't the only one, but by far this is my favorite one because my students can get that hands-on experience that a lot of the other resources that I have access to for my students, they don't give them that type of hands-on approach to learning like this does. You can look at the online simulation labs and that kind of thing, and those are great. But when you actually have something in their hands that they are programming to make it look like a heart is beating on their screen of their little microbits, their little eyes light up. They just get so excited. And that's like, okay, this validates exactly why I wanted to be a teacher to begin with, because this is what I want to see. I want to see that aha moment. And I saw that more this year with the use of the microbits because they understand, okay, this is why my code is written this way. That's why it's programmed this way. So, I mean, it worked very well for my classroom. I loved it. And I hope that anyone that joined in or is listening in that will, just give it a try, see what you think about it, and go from there. Because with the Create PT, there's no said topic. Your students are supposed to come up in their own minds with what topic they want to do for their Create PT. What it is that they're going to create. Are they going to create an educational game about all of the presidents that we've had thus far? Are they going to create an informational app? One student wanted to create something that maintained her glucose levels because she was a severe type 1 diabetic. So there's some amazing ideas out there. And I think that this type of hands-on approach actually opens their eyes up to more possibilities than just giving them a textbook and saying, okay, you've got definitions to learn. Because obviously none of us would really enjoy that as much. So to me, the microbits and CodeSpace were able to spur their creativity, and their projects became a lot more original. So, and I knew this would not take me the entire time to go through this. I would like for this manual to cooperate with me. I don't know what's going on with it. I'm going to try to open it up again. The lesson plans are really good, and I've never been questioned on those lesson plans. I can take you to the unplugged activities link and let you take a look at those. Those should come up right here. These are all of your resources for this Unit 0's unplugged activities. The binary bracelets, everything that you need is listed here. The binary bracelets was great. It's one of my funner projects, but last year, thanks to Fury Labs, I found the PB&J challenge, and that was definitely the funnest. But again, super messy. My tables were really sticky, but it was well worth it because the students absolutely loved it and they understood. You've got to be able to write code in a manner that the computer is going to do what you tell it to do, but you're going to tell it to do the right thing. So if you don't instruct your partner on how to create that peanut butter and jelly sandwich the right way, there is no telling what you're going to come up with. So just to give you a little glimpse of what that looks like, but binary beads or binary bracelets, here's your lesson sequence at the bottom. Page 2, this is from code.org. This is your binary decoder, where you can explain the alphabet, you can have them, and this is appropriate really all the way down to elementary grades. Let's find the first letter of your first name, and we're going to code it at the bottom of what that letter would look like, and then we're going to make a bracelet that represents those ones and zeros. So this is a great activity to get started with. And then, of course, you can see the coding relay race, the debugging relay race. here is the Pioneers of Computing down here, PB&J algorithm, but lots of great stuff. And I hope that if you are teaching computer science for the first time, that you fall in love with this class like I did. There is just no other class like it. And it's one of those classes, if I could offer it more blocks of the day, I certainly would, because I enjoy teaching it. The material is just very, very good. So I hope everyone likes it. I'm going to try one more time to get this manual to open up for me and cooperate so that I can show you all the amazing resources included. Okay, so here's some good stuff. I do in the latter lessons, you can put students into groups with the microbit because it does allow for collaboration on your create performance task or that project. I also incorporate group work as kind of like a precursor before we go into the create PT. We do all of this first. And then that way they can decide what resource they want to use if they're building an app, or if they are going to make something with the microbit and create something in that manner, then they can, choose to use CodeSpace. But these are some important things that the students get to look at in each other. As far as a review perspective, like what's the title of their project? What did they like about it? And then going through the rubric, did the project meet all of the design requirements? If it didn't, what was missing? And I just feel like that reflective practice, from an educator all the way down to a student, I really feel like we need more of that. And this is definitely a way that you can incorporate reflective practicing. And then you can describe at least one suggestion or improvement. But so that way we can look at it from a constructive standpoint. Here is the microbit project planning sheet. So you can look at input, output, wires, pin assignments. And of course, if I'm saying these things and it's scaring you, please don't let it, because you just need some time sitting down with it to realize this is not hard stuff. It's anything anybody can do, and I feel like once you get your hands on it, you're going to love it. If you're looking at how these standards align with Alabama, the next page shows just that, along with all the other states with a hyperlink added to it. And then going down, okay, here's where I was wanting to get to. Jumpstart Python unit overview. Okay, so some people said, okay, Tiffany, how long is all this going to take me in this class? Because I teach middle school, or I teach high school, or I teach an advanced elementary group of students. How long do I need to plan for? Well, I can tell you that there are estimated times on the unit overview page. So if you're looking at unit 0 and doing some of the coding unplugged activities, if you're looking at that, you're looking at anywhere from 5 to 10 hours. But if you're teaching high school, I can tell you it's not going to take that long at all. So as a matter of fact, I was able to incorporate in additional activities with that. We're on block, so let me say that. I have my students 89 minutes a day. So I did an unplugged activity. It did not take but maybe half the time. So I am able to incorporate other resources. So if you're teaching this again from an AP standpoint and you're like, oh my goodness, am I really going to be able to fit in something else? Yes, you are going to be able to fit in everything you need to fit in. And I'll be happy if anybody wants to reach out to me individually. I'll be happy to share with you what I did in my pacing guide, but there's no perfect way. It's just what's the best way that you can find to conduct your classroom. So, unit 1 and unit 0, you may start with unit 0. You may not see unit 1 for 2, 3, 4 weeks. You might incorporate some other resources that you have in mind. And that's okay. These last 3 years, we've had the Explore PT. So I have had to allow time for that. Now that we don't have that, I'm anxious to see what College Board is going to say. because I am really excited about having a little bit more time to focus on some of those exam objectives. I don't know if any of you have taught this class before, felt that way, but I just felt so rushed. I felt pushed. I'm like, oh my goodness, how am I going to make this work? So I'm really excited because I feel like the revisions will be things that will be really good. And if you're brand new coming into it, then you know nothing any different. So, that's great. And again, you don't have to do all of these units. You pick out the units that are most applicable to your situation. I didn't have a microbit for every student in the room starting out. As a matter of fact, I had one. So you can't teach a room full of 28 students with one microbit, but it's a good place to start. And I have every Friday what's called Expert Day. And in my first year, I let one student become an expert on microbit. And then when I received a grant, I was able to fund an entire classroom full of microbits. So I have enough for every student, but it didn't start out that way. So if you can't start out that way, then that's okay. I think there are some Donorschoose options out there that I'm sure Fury Labs is going to introduce to you guys in the future at some point. Take full advantage of that if you can. And let's see. But off and on, I started in August. August 1 was our first day to school in 2019. I had Unit 0, and some of Unit 1 throughout that first month. In the second month, September, we did Units 2 and going into 3. In October, I did Unit 4 and 5. And then I went into the mock Create PT. So I did not go through every single thing in every unit, though. I will say that. Excuse me, not Unit 4. That was a different thing. But I finished everything by November, and that was embedding it in with other resources. So I hope that is helpful for those of you who are tuning in and listening in. Does anybody have any questions?
Tiffany, I have a couple.
Okay.
So I'm wondering, you mentioned that you use some other unplugged activities or other resources besides some of the things from Fury Labs to supplement. I'm just curious what some of those other resources were that you chose to incorporate.
Sure. Okay. Well, some of the information I incorporated from code.org, and some of the Fury Labs stuff came from code.org too, like I think the binary bracelets, that worksheet came from code.org. Very good resource. It's all free. So I highly recommend that. My students actually pushed me to look at Khan Academy. They're like, look, I love that. You need to, I had a student come to me, guys, and tell me, I want you to let us do Khan Academy. I want to do that more than I want to do code.org. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going with my students' feedback because they're the ones doing the work, not me. I'm planning, I'm grading, but they're the ones actually learning from it. They felt like they got more out of that. I did pull a scratch maze game. I purchased, if you guys are familiar with Gina McCarley and her program that she has, Bits and Bytes and Bits. I purchased some curriculum from them that I have also incorporated. It's good stuff. We did some of their stuff. I did more of the things from them. As a matter of fact, let me try to pull that up. It's Jill Westerland at Hoover High School and Gina McCarley.
Oh, and I know now, Jill.
Yeah. And I'm so sorry that just left me, but I will try to find it real quick. But great stuff.
Yeah, they have stuff posted in the Computer Science Principals Facebook group, I think, now that you say Jill's name with Gina's. So I know they did a bunch of unplugged stuff when we all went to remote learning to help teachers who weren't allowed to introduce new concepts or use computers for teaching it. So that's great.
Okay. Well, yes, but I incorporated a lot of the resources from there that I purchased. And then of course we had the Explore PT. I went back to microbits. Adhesive is another one. I received a grant from Amazon for adhesive, so that was another resource. Highly recommend it. I thought it was good. My students kind of felt in the middle on it. They liked Khan Academy best, and then adhesive, and then code.org. But I pulled a little bit of everything because I wanted to gauge from a teaching perspective, okay, what's going to convey the concept best, but also, you know, what's going to be most effective and efficient at the same time. Gina and Jill created a project, Martin Luther King app project. I incorporated that app project in there. And then, you know, the large part of December for us, because I'm on block, I had to dedicate to the Create PT. I didn't have a whole lot of time. We did take a look at App Inventor quite a bit. That was another resource I used. I discussed the Snapchat remix with effects on technology in society. That was a good activity. But with the MLK app, there is a video out there on that. So I'll be happy to share with you their contact information. I believe it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $130 to purchase their lesson plans. They also provide you with template worksheets and that kind of thing. All these things are great things. I took my students on a field trip during the semester to the Apple Store, and we participated in a programming experience there with Apple computers. Because again, I try to expand exposure as much as possible to different facets of IT. And I want people to be able to say, okay, well, I don't, you know, I may not know all about one Android phone or an Apple phone, but I've been exposed to all of it. Because I feel like CSA is really where you dive in deeper, specifically with Java. I've never taught that. I am CSP all the way, and then I teach software development and IT fundamentals in addition to that from the career tech world's perspective. But I think that Fury Labs just are all stars. They saved the day on the hands-on projects. And I really, really appreciate being able to offer that to my students. Without a grant, it would be very hard to do. But, you know, perseverance is really key, your determination and wanting to get the best for your kids. And I can tell you that this is the best because there's no subscription. Once you purchase your microbit, then CodeSpace comes with it. And it's not one of those things you have to renew every year, or that's going to automatically deduct from your credit card. It's once you purchase it, it's yours. It's yours to use for life. So I highly recommend it.
Tiffany, did you have any kids who chose to do their performance create tasks using a microbit?
Not yet, because as I said, last year was the very first year. And I do know when I was asked to do this, I'm like, well, if I'm focusing on the Create PT, okay. But, and I think some of it is I needed that extra time. And now that we're not going to have the Explore to have to set aside so many hours of class time for them doing, then I feel like being able to do more of the remix projects will definitely help them in aiding in their understanding and their level of confidence. Because I think the more you practice something, the more you're going to be confident doing it. I just think that my students needed a little bit more confidence. And I think once they have that, then they will probably come here wanting to use the microbit over an online simulation. Any more questions?
Just another thought, if people are looking to get microbits in the CodeBots, that if you sign up for the Summer Pathfinders Institute, that is included within the value of the institute. So, and then you can fund the remaining cost of the institute that's not funded through Infosys Foundation through Donorschoose if your school district lets you do that. And so if you need help launching a Donorschoose project, Jerry can get you in contact with me because I'm a Donorschoose ambassador, and I will walk you through how to launch your first Donorschoose project.
Awesome. I'm just flipping through how some, if you were to pace it out over the course of 9 weeks, for a high school course, I would probably condense that down to more like 6 or 7 weeks. I think you could get through all of it. With the AP students, I think you could. With high school AP students, you could get through this quicker than 9 weeks. So, and then project 1, I'm getting started, is really more of a tour. It's kind of showing you around CodeSpace and letting you familiarize yourself. Last summer, I went to the College Board supported computer science, advanced computer science class, where Amber was teaching us how to use this. So if that is offered again this summer, then I highly recommend, if any teachers can go, they need to go to that. That's where you will have somebody helping you through and helping you understand how to use it. It's very hard to do that from a webinar standpoint because you don't have that microbit in front of you. But if you want to figure out how to make a heartbeat on a tiny, tiny little microbit, that's really cool. I love that. The other favorite one of mine was the dimmer switch activity, where you can use a light sensor and show students how to program that to, you know, read the level of light in the room, and then, of course, light up or dim if need be, whatever your situation is. And then here's the Jumpstart lesson plans. This is what I was trying to get to earlier, and I was having some tech issues. You can see on here the unit goals. Students will learn the basics of Python. The CSTA focus standards, the learning targets, like this is a principal's dream for a lesson plan. Success criteria, key concepts, real world applications, yay, assessment strategies, and then any additional teacher notes that you want to put in there if you want to print this off and hang on to it. And then here is Unit 1 and getting started, display games. And then, of course, any templates that you need, they're there. Code trace chart. What was your event? The outcome, was it correct? And if it wasn't correct, how did you make that change and fix it? And then, of course, more lesson plans. It's awesome. I don't know if lesson plan writing is your favorite thing in the world, you go. That is awesome. But it's not my favorite thing. And I greatly, greatly appreciate their dedication and time and commitment to putting this together for us as teachers. Saves a lot of time. Now, here are some Jumpstart remix tasks that kind of go off the grid. And there's a rubric, yay, down at the bottom. So you can know exactly how you should grade the students on those remix projects if you so choose to assign those. And you may not want to do that right away. You may want to just get comfortable with the environment, which is completely understandable. But if you're ready and you have a advanced group of students coming to you, then definitely don't shy away from it. Give them a challenge, because it definitely challenged me my first time using it. So are there any more questions? It's 3:47, so we've still got plenty of time if anyone has anything else that we want to talk about.
Did you use CodeBots at all?
I did not. No, this first year, I have one CodeBot. So far, I've not been able to secure funding for a whole classroom. So I have had students work with that one code bot, but no, I have not jumped in yet and done the code bots. But I mean, I can tell you from experience, I love microbit. Those are fantastic. And I can definitely see where CodeBot would be a great fit, especially if you're wanting students to do something with the Create PT with it. I could see a lot of good ideas coming from that.
Tiffany, I have a question for you. Certainly, we're going to have multiple viewers check this out later. Do I have permission to connect them with you? Should they have questions for you specifically, as having been experienced in the AP CSP world with the Ferry Labs Jumpstart curriculum? May I have permission to connect them with you? Would that be something that would be acceptable?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to talk to anybody that, wants to talk about it. And again, we are limited from this webinar standpoint. So the more, I highly recommend, if they can get some hands-on practice, or if there is a loaner program that you could do for them, that's going to be, practice makes perfect. That's going to be your best way, is just jumping in there head first and learning it first yourself as a teacher. But I will be more than happy to share my pacing guide. It's a hot scribbled mess. But I used it and I maximized every single minute. We worked from bell to bell, but I didn't want them to think it was work. That's why I tried to make it fun. And microbits and CodeSpace helped me do just that. It really, oh goodness, big difference in my first 2 years teaching the class and this year. I've had rave reviews. I've had students say, "Oh, I got to have that class because I want to be able to program a heartbeat. I want to make a light dimmer switch. I want to make this. I want to make that." So there's a lot of creativity flowing from there's a lot to be said about being able to do something with your hands and take what you've learned and put that into real world practice. So, thank you, Ferry Labs, for letting me do that. Because without you guys, I wouldn't have that opportunity for my students to do that, because it's not super, super expensive. It's not like, trying to set up a server room and teach students how to do that. This is something, and it's something small too. It doesn't take a lot of storage. But I went out and I purchased the storage containers like Amber had last year. So I'll be happy to show whatever, how I've got mine set up. It's very similar to how Amber had hers set up. But it's all about organization when they're little bitty and you have to keep up with those things. But it's still great hands-on experience for the students.
So just a little a peek into the future. Not sure how soon it'll come out, but we are working on new packaging that is a value add to the teachers, so that the packaging is the storage for you, so you don't have to do an additional purchase of. So we are working on that.
Yay, great. That is awesome.
Always trying to meet the teacher's needs.
Yes.
And thus, if we meet your needs, you're also able to meet the students' needs. So happy to do that.
Yes. Well, thank you all very much. That is great. That is great. We've got about 7 more minutes.
I will tell you, I had at least one person contact us directly saying they had tried to get into the meeting, and it had said internal meeting only or something like that. So I don't know why some were in and others not. So it could be that others ran into that problem today too. So I apologize, and I'll troubleshoot to see if I can find out what happened there.
That's all right.
With Joanna's help.
No worries.
Yes. Awesome.
Well, Tiffany, thank you so much. This was so helpful. I only was trained on Jumpstart in February, and then have kind of been working with Jerry and with Amber on some of the webinars. But also am a computer science principles teacher, and I use Adhesive, but we didn't use Jumpstart for that class. I used it as like a Fun Friday thing.
Oh, yeah.
for just a Python programming class where adhesive was the base, but they needed physical computing, like you said. And so I just love what that brought to the table. And I was lucky enough when I went to Pathfinders, I had such a small class, I was able to sign out all those Jumpstart kits and send them home for remote learning. And I just love, even when we're in this weird environment and we don't know how we're going to start school next year, how easy the Jumpstart stuff was for my students to work at home and then still be able to support them if they were having an issue with those lessons, and just how wonderfully scaffolded it is. And so if somebody's worried about like, what am I going to do if I have to teach a new principles class next year? The Jumpstart Python stuff is such a great starter. And like you said, there's so many other resources out there for those bigger concepts of like how did the internet work, and leveraging things like Khan Academy or the free lessons that are already built in code.org to kind of fill in those other topics that are available in the course description.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that makes another good point too. That drives it home because we don't know what August
No
is going
idea.
to look like. We hope we will get to go back in Alabama in mid-April, maybe mid to late or April. Look at me, August. Yeah, but we're hoping that we get to go back at that point. But who knows? I mean, yeah. So
we're in the same boat in New Hampshire. We just don't know what's going to happen with the pattern of everything and social distancing and all that stuff. So
you mean how? Yeah.
Speaking of being at home.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Tiffany, you've been awesome today. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this, sharing your own experience. At a couple of times, I felt the same with Joanna. I just want to, holler out, "You're hired," sales, whatever. But no, I do appreciate it. Thank you. And I really appreciate you sharing the other resources that you use for different things. No one tool, fits every need. And a lot of times it's hard for teachers to find, what are the good resources out there, and so, or what are the best ones out there. And I appreciate you directing towards some of those. So
yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. My pleasure. My pleasure. And if there's anything I can ever do to help anybody, please don't hesitate to shout out, let me know, and hopefully we can learn from each other, because that's what it's all about, making
Absolutely.
the world a little better place for the ones that are coming up. So absolutely. Anytime.
All right. Thank you, Tiffany. See you, Matt.
Hey, thanks, Tiffany.
Yeah, you're welcome, Matt.
All right, I'll let y'all sign out, and Joanna and I are going to stay on to chat offline a little bit.
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.